almost made it on time.
Alright, let's see how this turns out. Obviously the sound's a little more than I want it to be. I should have adjusted that. I'm going to go ahead and do that before I start. And as I am working this, excuse me again, the more I talk, the more I cough. I don't need to see a doctor. I just think it's forces unseen that want to interfere. Just in the volume here so it doesn't drive you crazy. Basically what I'll be doing is just speaking on mental health because I think that it is necessary, and especially with everything that we're seeing, and just for a way of orientation as I was preparing this. And I really don't need to do much. Just maybe got another computer here that I need to work on. Okay. And that's my research computer in case I need a factor or something else. And okay, so what is the beginning on mental health? Well, it's not mental health, it's actually just good mental health. And there has been a lot that has been said and done. Is it possible to define good mental health? I think it is. I think one of the errors is that thinking that freedom of, well, let's look at the two sources of energy in people's spirit, self-esteem, call it what you want to call it, that interfere, two of the sources that interfere with the individual's good spirit. One is anxiety, and two is depression. And where do these two forces or these two sources of energy come from? And a lot can be said for us learning to be afraid, which is what anxiety is, and a lot can be said for us learning to be depressed, to be sad. When I would speak on good mental health, I would have to say that it is important to keep in mind that freedom from stress isn't necessarily happiness. Happiness is an active, it's something you have to be doing. And one of the things, the first thing that I would have to put on my list of things to talk about when I'm talking about mental health is the idea that people have to listen to someone else. It's too easy to go under the impression that because we have all these ideas that we know exactly what it is to do and how to do it. There's a lot of people who won't accept the reality that their life isn't what it can be. And for the most part, you just can't convince someone of something that they're not prepared to understand. If you're a person who suffers from severe anxiety and severe depression, there are rules of psychology that those who have studied psychology, those who work as licensed professional counselors, as PhDs, psychologists, or psychiatrists, which is an MD, and I only have a bachelor's, but I've thought about this enough to be able to come down to some certain conclusions. But the person has to buy in. The person has to be in the spirit of listening to those who are attempting to give them helpful information. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. Now, an individual who is going through severe stress, whether it be through anxiety or depression, is feeling rather vulnerable. And when you feel vulnerable, you feel threatened. And when you feel threatened, you get defensive. And when you're defensive, you're not in the mood to listen to people to tell you what it is they believe is right. But that's what you have to do. You have to listen to somebody else, and you have to accept that they may have an idea about how to calm your anxiety and how to calm your depression. Now, I happen to believe that psychology is full service. Some people may get mad, but I think that psychology can serve a person like Osama bin Laden as much as it can serve somebody suffering from postpartum depression. In our world, we're sort of, orientated to certain philosophies, and culture philosophies are because of what we hear, our parents, our family group, and our people in our neighborhood, and of course it transcends into television, movies, and any kind of media that you can mention, newspapers, magazines, whatever the case may be. And the majority of what people think is wrong. Um, I do believe that in our society today, we have the necessary intelligence and psychology to have centers where people come and self-identify that they are having desires to harm children or desires to harm someone else. I believe we can have centers, walk-in centers, where a person says, I am having the urges to rape my neighbor, and instead of the world going crazy, the person talks to a professional, a licensed professional, um, is given some helpful strategies, and is also put under medication. Why we don't do it, I don't understand. I mean, I think all of us want to stop child abuse. I think all of us want to stop rape. I think all of us want to stop murder. And if we have the wisdom, not just the intelligence, we have the wisdom, then why don't we do it? And that's a very good question. We don't do it because we're really not um, positive about mental health. Some of it has to do with fear, what we don't understand, we're afraid of. When we're afraid, we become defensive. And when we become defensive, we become protective. So we shut everybody out. We don't want to hear what anybody has to say. And that's a very bad attitude, because we're never going to get to the point where we can stop child abuse. We can stop child abuse. We can help parents understand their anxiety levels. We can help parents understand a healthy way of living, a healthy way of parenting. We have the information, we have the skills. The only thing we're not doing is actually being actively involved in preventing child abuse. It's interesting when you hear politicians talk, they talk about the economy, they talk about health care, but they don't talk about preventing child abuse, which should be an important goal in the formation of society. Now, I'm a person who happens to believe stay on task, stay on subject. When I talk to people and they wander off the subject, I say you need to stay on task. Um, the first thing that I would tell you, if you came and spoke to me and said, you know what, I'm tired of my wife, I just can't handle it anymore, it's too stressful, the first thing that I would tell you is, have you ever considered that maybe the way you look at life is incorrect? And that's the starting point. Because we are the ones that have formulated a vision of life. Of course, we acquired a lot of information, we heard a lot of people talking, we observed and heard a lot of media, and we think that what we have been exposed to actually qualifies for a quality vision of life. We are the people who decide to put things in some kind of order. And I can tell you from everything that I've looked at, of course, earning a bachelor's in psychology, but just meditating on issues and documentaries and reading and continuing to in self-study, the biggest problem in human nature is negativity. And negativity is directly related to what we think. Now, this is not a religious channel, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that there is a God, and those unseen forces that are spoken of in the Bible are true. I'm also going to go ahead and tell you that a lot of times the things that you do are directly related to the temptations of Satan. But outside of that, let's stick with the basics. And I'm going to try not to use language that people will say, well, what's it talking about? Use the word paradigm, but in my understanding of human psychology, I organize it as we have thoughts that lead to emotions. Oh, excuse me, I got to remember that I added. We have thoughts, which leads to emotions and sensations, which lead to behavior. Sometimes it's just thoughts that lead to behavior, but the majority of the time it's thoughts, emotions and sensations, and behavior. And I am specifically talking about people who are experiencing high levels of distress. Anxiety can be rather debilitating. It can be hard to deal with. It brings up issues of pain, suffering. People are hurting, and they don't understand why they're hurting. And a lot of what feeds anxiety, the whole group of emotions in anxiety, is the frustration that you don't want to be this way. You don't want to be a person who's nervous all the time, who's constantly fearing life or issues of life, who can't understand why they want to be happy, but something internally keeps them at a state of pain and suffering. Unless you have lived this experience, you're not going to have a true understanding. One of the biggest problems in our culture is that everybody says, well, it's just in your mind. It is in our mind. However, there are serious, I'm going to use the word pathology, but there are serious elements, different levels that contribute to anxiety and interfere with the individual who is attempting to not be under the state of fear, of anxiety, of pain and suffering, who would like to feel okay, who would like to have peace. They would like to move away from anxiety and move towards peace. I don't want this computer to turn off in case I need it. It loves to do that by itself. So that's the important thing. Excuse me. And when you look at depression, when a person looks at depression, um, yes, I'm getting some lag here. The picture is frozen. Something. Hope I even lost volume. Okay, here we go again. Okay, so um, think it's hard to listen to that. I understand that. Excuse me, I'm gonna okay, I'm gonna clear camera, but like it saw me that I was about to attack, and I said, "Oh, I'll just get in his way." Okay, so things happen. Let's be realistic. And sometimes I avoid talking about all the things that can contribute to anxiety and depression, but because what it'll do to the person who is looking for self-help assistance, video aids on the internet, or just who I may be having a conversation with, it will trigger them. It will get them to focus on that. And then it will start the whole cycle of whether it be depression or whether it be anxiety. I can tell you that you can have all people can have freedom from whatever um, is stressing them out, whatever's causing them pain and suffering. You can have freedom from it, no matter what the level is. Um, we're smart enough to start thinking in a different way. We're smart enough to stop hurting ourselves with our negative internal voice. We don't have to keep calling ourselves failures and stupid and dummies. And the source isn't important. I'm sure if I had a conversation with people, I'm eventually going to get to the problem, and the problem is going to be the dynamics of the parent-child relationship. And I know a lot of people don't like that. Every time something happens that involves a child and society's talking about it, and I encounter people, I tell them, listen, all of you are upset when we who study psychology start talking about the parent and what role the parent played in the behavior of the child. But that's how it is. There's unhealthy families. There's healthy families. Not all families are unhealthy. That's a foolish assumption. Somebody selling books or DVDs and CDs wants us to believe that every single person is having some kind of mental health problem. Are there issues? There are always going to be issues. There's going to be times that we're not that happy. There's going to be times when we're experiencing some kind of problem and we overreact and we feel depressed because we said something to our wife that we shouldn't, or a wife said something to her husband that she shouldn't have said. And there's going to be challenges in life. Life is about challenges. But there is a road to health. There's a road to illness in our society, around the world. Our societies are built on illness. Our societies are not built on health. Excuse me. And that's a tragedy. That's a tragedy. Excuse me. I got to keep track of this because I'm only going to. I told myself I'm only going to do an hour. I should be like all psychologists and consider 45 minutes an hour. And it is sad. That was the last point I had before I rambled on about how much time. It is sad that we live in a world with so much information, so much knowledge, and there's so many people who are hurting. There are so many people who today, unfortunately, a lot of people are going to commit suicide. There are no answers in suicide. I need to tell you this. There's no freedom in death. You can start thinking in a different way and start believing again. Start believing in yourself. In all the articles that I've written, in all the essays, video essays that I have done, I tell people you're empowered because you have the ability to think, organize, plan, and act. The information that is available is information that can lead us to the road of being positive, optimistic, hopeful, or being a cynic, being negative. I haven't lived your life. You're absolutely correct, 100%. I have not lived your life. However, you're not a prisoner of the events of your life. You're not a prisoner of the job that you thought was a perfect career, but you lost. It happened in the past. It's part of your reality, but it has nothing to do with your present status. You're the one that is putting it in a category of this is a personal failure, this is a disappointment, and it makes me sad. And what I'm saying is not judgmental. When I was having a conversation with a person, I told him I make it a fact critics. The internet, that there's statistically in most cultures, 25% suffer from severe mental health issues. And I'm under the impression that the internet is where these 25% go to exercise their demons of hate, the desire to hurt other people. And it's sad when someone like myself is only trying to offer information that can help people, and we run into these haters, these destructive forces, who want to spend their time, attacking. But I also understand that it's a natural reaction when you're hearing a different philosophy to believe that somebody is judging you. I'm not judging anybody. I'm not condemning anybody. I'm not prosecuting or persecuting anybody. I believe in the beauty of life. I believe that people have every skill they need to control their own anxiety and to control their own depression. I know it. It starts with how you think. Is it easy? No. If it was easy, we wouldn't have that much problems in society around the world. But you can start putting yourself in a good spirit by concentrating on what's good in life. There's no way in heck you're going to convince me that everything in your life is wrong. You may view it as such. You may have experienced events in your life that all of it would come to the conclusion, okay, that's unfortunate. And it can be a personal disappointment. But we have to move away from the personal disappointment, put it in its place, and recognize that life is beautiful. And there's still a lot to enjoy. In our modern world, we're given messages about high school, college, careers, and sometimes, a lot of frustration happens because people wanted to be something and it didn't work out. One of the life lessons I learned, I wanted to be a doctor of psychology, but one of the life lessons I learned was to be happy no matter what. To be happy as a taxi driver with a bachelor's in psychology, to be happy as a security guard. Life has a lot to offer. Some of them are rather, simplistic amenities like I love Coca-Cola. I don't drink it every day, but I have sort of a jokester personality. I like to laugh and joke around. One of the most important people in my life, I realized this late in life, one of the things that I used to enjoy was to make her laugh because her laugh would make me happy. Her smile would make me happy. And those are the things in life that we forget. We pay more attention to cars and homes and careers. And sometimes we forget that we're the ones that have decided to look at life as something ugly. Instead of being grateful and appreciative, we're focusing on the milk that's not in the glass. And I said this before. In a point in time in human history where you had to wait a month for the milkman to come around, I guess spilling milk was a bad thing. I live in a society where I can get milk almost anywhere. We can get live almost anywhere, whether it's reading a book, listening to music, certain types of movies, because I do believe that a lot of this garbage that is going on poisons the brain, defeats the human spirit, makes people depressed, gives people anxiety. People start to see these messages and they start to believe the messages. They lose hope, they start to feel bad, and their positive energy, their positive spirit um, is. Now, I have an admonition. You can almost say I have a war with the Christian church. I'm not trying to make a new religion. I do not believe that psychology is anti-God. A lot of people, I've heard commentary in the Christian community that it, that psychology is nothing more than, you know, a replacement for God, and it's not. I see it, and I will always see it as as medicine that God has provided us with. The ability to understand our thoughts, to understand our emotions, to understand our behaviors, to understand our biology. One of the things that I try to make a point of, especially in both sources of distress to an individual, anxiety and or depression, sometimes it's our own body that gets in the way. That's sad. You want to be happy, you want to be free of distress, you want to have peace, you want to have love, you want to have joy, you want to have the life that you believe regular people have. It is because of the imbalance of the neurotransmitters in your brain the fault of yours. Ask for you didn't ask for this imbalance, but you don't have to let it dominate you. One of the things that when I started, figuring it out, thinking about it. I'm not going to say that I'm a great uh, intellectual, but just as Einstein and Freud sat there and questioned life and questioned elements of life, I've been doing the same thing, and I've come to certain conclusions. I believe that that we can relax our anxiety, we can relax our depression with relaxation exercises. One of the things when things are so overwhelming that you can't stand the pain, the hurt, the suffering, it is helpful to have some relaxation strategies, because the cycle can happen in this manner, that you're naturally filled with anxiety, and then the anxiety gives you more anxiety, and before you know it, you're overwhelmed with anxiety. But if we start to learn to identify when anxiety is starting to build up, then we can practice relaxation exercises so we're not obsessing on certain ideas, which is feeding the anxiety. I can very easily replace the word anxiety with fear. We have that ability to say, this pain and suffering, this ugliness that I'm always feeling inside is starting to build up, and I'm getting frustrated, and that is giving me more anxiety. And it's better that I start to relax and focus on something other than negative thoughts. I'm not going to name the person who said this, but one of the stupidest things I've heard in my whole life, and this is a person who claims to have a PhD in psychology, she said that you cannot control emotions. Emotions are just going to happen. Uh, I have nothing to offer this so-called PhD professional. I'm surprised that a person studying psychology would make that kind of a statement. But the reality is that we do have the ability to control our emotions by the way that we think. We have the ability to control our sensations by the way that we think. I'm not going to moralize to people. I'm not going to tell you no sex before marriage. I'm going to tell you get married in the eyes of God. Those are issues that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. Those are issues people are going to have to figure out for themselves. However, and a big however, if you and I are having a conversation on mental health science, there are certain things that I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you that your spirit is directly related to how you think. I'm going to tell you that your emotions is directly related to how you think. And I'm going to tell you that those troublesome behaviors, those things that you keep doing that upset you, that you wish you didn't do, are related to the emotions. Sort of redundant to say the emotions you're feeling, but they're related to your emotions. And your emotions are related to your thoughts. Who controls our thoughts? We control our thoughts. We can say, I'm starting to sense anxiety. I can participate in an enjoyable activity. That's one option. I can focus on what's good, make myself feel better. I can start organizing my emotions by organizing my thoughts. We have that ability. And I must tell you that it's a life's work. As much as you want to feel different, there is no overnight solution. Every day you have to remind yourself to focus on the good. Every day you have to remind yourself to incorporate simple pleasures of life in your life, like friendships, conversations with family, again, literature and music, recreation, hobbies, bicycling, hiking, caring for your home, taking an interest in your life. There's always an opportunity to focus on what's good in life. It's only detrimental. It only looks bad. We only feel ugly because we have convinced ourselves that life is bad. And we can just as easily convince ourselves that life is good. And when we convince ourselves that life is good, we'll notice that our emotions start to change. And we'll notice that we're now focused on peace, love, and joy, and we're not focused on those negative elements that bring up anxiety, that bring up depression. The message of hope, again, is that we're empowered by our ability to think, organize, plan, and act. We're always going to want life. That's true, absolutely 100%. We're always going to want things from life. Now, we're brainwashed, we're conditioned, we're coded to pursue products like Coca-Cola. And I was going to say Big Macs, but I don't know who in the world desires a Big Mac anymore. Whatever Carl's Jr. has to offer. Humor, healthy humor, is a simple pleasure of life. Dynamic of the human experience is that there's a lot that entertains us. There's a lot that calls our attention. We don't always have to be trying to solve the problems of the world. We're never going to solve the problems of the world. We need to understand that. As individuals, as people, we need to understand that we're part of the solution. We're not the whole solution. But as far as our personal experience and how much mental distress we have, that's in our hands. It's in our control. And I'm surprised how many times I have a conversation with a person and they agree but I know they're not going to go out and make a practice of living a good life, of reducing their stress with simple, healthy pleasures of life, with focusing on what's good, with appreciating what they have and enjoying what they have. You have yourself. Number one resource is yourself. Nobody can control your thoughts. Nobody can tell you don't think positive. No one can tell you don't have hope. Now, I understand there's a lot in life. I understand that. There are women being used as punching bags by their husbands. I understand that. There are children being sexually abused by someone, parent, the grandparent. I understand this. And it's going to have detrimental effects on an individual's psychology. Many parents are parenting in the manner that's going to result in adult anxiety and adult depression in their children. Freud was right. A lot of people have discredited Freud, laughed at Freud. I guess you can find things to laugh at anything or anybody. But when Freud said that adult problems are unresolved issues in childhood, he was absolutely 100% correct. Of course, some people make it to adulthood without any major catastrophes in their early childhood, and then disappointments in careers, disappointment in education, disappointment in love and romance and marriage start to build up, and people become overwhelmed with anxiety, or they become overwhelmed with depression. So the human psychological dynamic can have many different contributing factors. But recognize that you're there. You're there, you're capable of controlling your thoughts. You're capable of focusing on something totally different than on what happened to you. And another admonition that I tell people is, even if you were given the opportunity to stand in front of your victimizer and explain to them the pain that they caused you in a manner that would get them to empathize and sympathize, to have compassion for the damage that they did to you, for you as a human being, as a person, and you get these individuals to give you a heartfelt apology, I hate to tell you this, but it's not going to do it for you. It's not going to relieve the pain. It's not going to relieve the hurt. It's not going to relieve the suffering. And the reason being is that we tie up our brains, and we become so afraid of fear that we tangle ourselves up to a point where the word traumatized by life actually fits. Well, traumatized by life is 3 words. It actually fits. And the key in there is how we perceive what happened. That's the key. I'm not saying that it wasn't abuse. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we failed to put things in perspective. We failed to look at it, set it aside, and start working towards the life that we want. The people who have hurt us, even though if they apologize, don't have a magic wand to undo all those tangled emotions, tangled fears that we have created. We are the ones that have to organize our emotions. We organize our emotions with our thoughts. And when we organize our emotions with healthy thoughts, we start having better emotions, and we start having better behaviors. And as messed up as this world is, there is hope. There is hope for everybody. Unfortunately, society has a different, I'm going to say different opinion. I'm going to start talking about things that really don't need to be talked about in this arena. But I do believe that there's a small power center in the world that is highly invested in destroying as much positive spirit humanity that they can destroy. I'm going to go ahead and say that there are people invested in your depression. There are people invested in your anxiety. And the one that has to be invested in your health is you. The one that has to say enough is enough is the one that has to come to the conclusion that you can do better for yourself is you. Therein lies the key. We feel because we think what we think. We behave the way we behave because we feel the way we feel. There is balance in life, and life can be a pleasant, enjoyable experience. It does take some growth and maturity. It does. There's people who are happy being the miserable jerks that they are. And when we encounter them, all those emotions of yeah, I have time to go ahead and speak on this. A person comes to the point of suicide from being bullied because that they learn that this condition is going to continue. And the reason they learn that that condition is going to continue is because nobody has taught them how to deal with these kind of stressors. You can empower a child by teaching, well, first of all, you empower a child by teaching the child to ask for help. That's an important issue. Everybody's scratching their head like they don't know what to do with this issue. They don't know how to view it. They don't understand the beginnings. They don't understand why a person bullies. They don't understand the psychological effects of somebody being bullied, victimized, being abused. And in our world, with everything that we know, professors in psychology can give you lectures as to why a young child continuously being bullied, if that's the word you want to use. I use the language that should be used, continuously being abused verbally, continuously being abused physically, psychologically, emotionally, maybe sexually, is because that person acquires a lot of pain and suffering that comes from believing that this is always going to be the way it's going to be. It can only be a constant if we're not empowered with strategies and practices that will allow us to put emotions in their proper place. I'm a firm believer in teaching people self-defense from an early age. I have no problem with teaching a 5-year-old self-defense. We don't teach 5-year-olds in self-defense. I happen to believe that in the public schools, out of all the things that we make children learn, we can very easily include self-defense. And it would help developing children to feel empowered, to feel strong, to be able to put things in their place, to find order in life, to not internalize the attacks that are coming from these individuals who need to be put in special schools and be trained to sympathize and empathize, to have compassion for their victims. In our society, there's all types of people. There are rapists, there are murderers, there are thieves, there are bullies. We can throw our hands up in the air and say we have no solutions, or we can realize that we do have a lot of solutions. We just are failing in employing those solutions. Your job as a parent isn't just to clothe, feed, and shelter your child. Your job as a parent is to teach your child how to meet the challenges of life. And if one of those challenges is being bullied, your child has to be confident enough to come to you and say, I'm being bullied. How do I find balance in my emotions? How do I find balance in my thoughts? And how do I find balance in my behaviors? We're not a healthy society. Now this is a lecture about how bad we are as a group of people at being healthy. It's an effort to help people understand the basic fact that we are capable of helping ourselves. We don't need to have insurance that covers psychotherapy. We're going to go forward. Life is here. It's not going anywhere. I would tell you never consider suicide. Never consider giving up. Always be your own best friend. Take care of you. You learn some poor coping skills, there's nothing wrong with that. I had to have a serious look at myself and say, the manner in which that I have directed my life is not correct. If I had not done it, I could have kept doing what I was doing. High probability I would have lost my life. Definite that I would not have enjoyed myself. I had a very important person in my life a while back, and her and I were more or less experiencing the same things in life: failures, disappointments, continuous struggle. And she asked me one day when we were talking, and I was my normal carefree person. She asked me, how do you do it? Just out of the blue. And I didn't get the question. We were not having a deep philosophical thought on issues of life. I was just being the typical jokester, enjoying life, trying to make her laugh. And she asked me, how do you do it? I said, what do you mean? She said, how, in light of all the ugliness that you experience, are you able to keep a happy spirit? That's always been my center, my normal nature. I'll get angry, I'll get frustrated, I'll get depressed, but I will eventually go back to what I enjoy. And what I enjoy is enjoying life my way. One of the beautiful things about America is freedom, liberty, and independence. And the independence part is your way, your music, your literature, your movies, your friends, your family members, your goals, your dreams, your ambitions. And I can sit here and give you 20 things that I love to do, and you'll say, well, I don't have to do any of them. But you do like to do certain things. You always did. When you were a kid, you like to run and play, like to laugh. It was important for you for your friends to like you. Your friends were special. Your friends can still be special. Your family should be special. The members of your family, your brothers and sisters, your mothers, your brothers, your dads, grandparents. My family is failing, but not everywhere. And it isn't a... Hey, hold on here. I gotta redo my camera. because this thing has a mind of its own, and it loves to. There we go. So, where was I? You know what you like internally. You know what you like. Is life has convinced you that it's ugly, that things are bad. But the reality is that today you can say, I'm going to start living for a better way, better life, better understanding. And the hard work is yours. Uh, Everything that I say is a helpful resource. I try to harm anybody. And sometimes that needs to be re-emphasized. Conversations I've had with people who have told me they've been in therapy for 12 years, 20 years, 30 years. And in my mind, it's like, why in the hell would you need to be in therapy over, say, 90 days? In my opinion, it's a very poor psychologist who can't tell their client, let's try to restructure your thoughts. And let's see if restructuring your thoughts leads to better emotions. And let's see if better emotions lead to better behaviors. Peace is a behavior. Love is a behavior. Joy is a behavior. You get there by focusing what's good in life. Focusing on what's good in life. You get there by making it a practice in your day, what I call our 24-hour rhythm of life. We can have peace, love, and joy if we make it a practice to look for simple, healthy pleasures of life. Conversations with friends, with family members, interaction with family members, socializing, hobbies, recreation, entertainment. If you feel you need a dog or a cat, okay. Uh, Most people who have been traumatized by life find it easy to care for a pet because they know that the pet will not harm them. The pet will not call them names. The pet will not use them as a punching bag. The pet will not fire them. The pet will not, for under most circumstances, the pet will not run away. And the pet will be happy to see them when they come home. Not an exercise. Owning a pet to calm emotions is not something I'm against, but I'm a thinker. And that's why when somebody tells me that they've gotten nothing out of 12 years of therapy, man. But not only is it all that missed life, here in less than 60 minutes I've covered what I happen to believe are strategies and practices that people can use to change their life and to feel better. And remember, freedom from stress is not automatic happiness. Happiness is a practice. It's an activity. You have to be doing it. You have to be loving life. You have to be engaging in things that give you peace, love, and joy. Just because you stop being depressed doesn't mean you're automatically going to start being happy. And it is something we have to do. Because if we don't do it, we don't get to where we want to be. And I can give you the message of hope. You are your hope. Now over that, I'm going to put on top that God is the hope of the world. And overnight, if you wanted an overnight cure, it would be Jesus Christ. But this is a effort in mental health science. You're not going to convince me that if you start thinking differently, if you start focusing on the positive, on having hope, on appreciating what you have in life, enjoying what you have in life, if you start incorporating simple, healthy pleasures in your 24-hour rhythm of life, if you start enjoying friendships, if you start enjoying interacting with your family members, you start enjoying socializing, hobbies, activities, if you start being kind to yourself, if you start finding balance in your emotions, there's no way you're going to convince me that you do all of that and you're still feeling bad. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. When you take steps into taking care of yourself, you do start uh, feeling the rewards. That's the way we're built. That's the way it works. And I think it's a tragedy to have the opportunity to actually live the life that we want to live, but to be so beat up by life that we're not even willing to try. That's a tragedy. It's a tragedy because we're so awesome. The one that built us with so many resources. I'm not talking about books or videos or licensed professionals. He built us with a brain. He built us with a nature that's always searching for what's good. That's always searching for what's enjoyable, for what's pleasant. And he built us with the ability to think, to organize, to plan, to act. So we can have these resources to use to understand why it is we have anxiety, to understand why it is we have depression, and to start seeing the role that we play in our mental health challenge. I'm coming to the last 3 minutes of this. And I'm starting to sense that literally all I have to do is just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. I do believe in it. I think they're helpful resources. It's a healthy philosophy. Many individuals can gain something good from it, a positive contribution to their life. I understand the haters are always going to hate, nothing you can do about it. But don't focus on the bad people. Focus on yourself, empower yourself. Look, if you were raped and you're scared of life, take self-defense courses, purchase illegal weapons you can purchase, empower yourself by being capable of defending yourself if anybody ever attempts to attack you. And for the same thing, if life has victimized you, empower yourself with a different philosophy. A philosophy that will help you put your emotions in order and will help you help yourself. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.